Here's what we're going to start with. I'm going to illustrate for you how disruption is accelerating. So everything that Clay Christensen has said, I believe, about the innovator's dilemma and disruptive innovation is true. I'm not here to bury any of it. I think it's all true. I am going to build on it, and the main point I want to make is that it's going faster than before. So let's illustrate that with an example, if anyone even remembers what it's like to go into a bank branch. You go and give your money to a company, then you have to wait in line to touch it. That's the whole business model, and it was when I was growing up. That's how you interacted with the bank, at banking hours, filling out deposit slips or withdrawal slips. Now that started to change in the late 70s when someone said we could put a machine on that task. Let's do some kind of disruptive innovation here. We'll add a machine. That machine will allow us to serve customers 24/7. It'll be outside the bank rather than inside the bank. Well, that was a pretty ambitious thing, and it led to the cash machine or the ATM. Now, the ATM itself, in today's money, each one of those machines in the late 70s cost about $180,000. So you can imagine that if you're about to disrupt the banking industry with this invention, it's going to take multiple millions of dollars. And in fact, it did. It took, across all the banks who invested in it over all the years, several decades and several billion dollars for the ATM to become, it turns out, not so disruptive as it was just a nice complement to what was already happening. Because if you think about it, all the things you could do with an ATM, pretty much, were things you could also do with a person face-to-face in the branch. Now we call that doing an old thing in new ways. And this happens a lot when you bring technology into a scenario. You say, what could we do with this technology? Oh, let's do the thing we've always been doing, and we'll do it again, only this time with a machine interposed. And that's exactly what the ATM was. Now let's think beyond simply doing old things in a new way and come up with entirely new things to do. For example, allowing someone to take a picture of the check that they've received and have the money deposited to their account immediately. Now 5 years ago, when there was only one bank in the country that could do this, and it was USAA, by the way, if anyone else wants a bit of trivia, if that ever helps you in any bar trivia contests in the future. First bank in the United States to do that. And every other bank looked at them and said, what are you doing? There's got to be some rules against that. And there were policies against it at other banks. All of which have been changed now. Most of you, you've all done this, right? Okay, so this is now a common behavior. Think about that though. This is now not just the same as taking a check to the ATM or to the bank, because it's immediate. It satisfies me in my mobile moment of need, a word I'll come back to, or a term I'll come back to in a minute. But more importantly, it does it in a way that you don't even have to pay for. The bank didn't pay for that device. The bank didn't pay for the connection. I did. The bank didn't even have to train me how to use it. To make sure I'm adhering to Christensen's work in disruptive innovation. In his world, that kind of disruptive innovation was fairly rare. It happened only infrequently, and it usually cost a lot of money, and in some cases decades. Many of his best case studies reflect decades of innovation to make happen. This, in 5 years, we've gone from one bank doing this to now pretty much all major banks and even major credit unions are doing this as well. But more importantly, it's not just this service. They're now using that app to have a deeper relationship and connection with the customer. So if we're going to talk about hyperconnectivity, we're illustrating a whole layer, multiple layers of connectivity here. Obviously, device connectivity. Okay. The infrastructure behind that for the business, the enterprise connectivity. Okay. But what's more important than that now is the kind of connectivity that's happening perhaps emotionally between the customer and the bank. As an organization, and as you go out and try to change the world, you will find that the world doesn't really want to be changed, especially at the organizational level. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So what I try to do is help people think about how to understand that this is an imperative and it's an opportunity. And I believe that both of those things very sincerely. The goal is to become what I call a digital disruptor, because if you're going to write a book, you have to call it something. You're a digital disruptor. And by the way, the dictionary does allow you to spell disruptor with an O-R or an E-R. I chose O. But it's bothered me every time I look at it. I think, it just doesn't feel right yet. Digital disruptors are better, stronger, and faster. And those three things refer to three specific things First of all, they build better product experiences, even if the products themselves don't change. So I put the word experience on there on purpose. I'll illustrate that in a moment. Those product experiences create stronger customer relationships, that connection that I was talking about earlier. And then, because of the tools that are available to them in this environment where it's cheaper and easier to do all of this stuff, like Square Cash, they can bring all of this to market faster than you would have in the past. This is about economics. Now, the dismal science, as it's been called, is the fundamental science, because economics determines what resources we have available to us, therefore what expectations we have about what resources we have available to us, and therefore how we act with our assumptions about what resources will be available to us. That's really what economics is fundamentally about. And here's what happens. The economics of digital disruption go from old disruption, where you had very few people who could amass the tremendous amount of capital necessary to bring a very small number of disruptive ideas to market. Whether you're talking about the personal computer, the MRI machine, jet engines, you name it. A whole bunch of important ideas have come into the world using this method. They just do it very slowly and at tremendous cost, with all of the power and most of the benefits being held by a small number of people. Digital disruption inverts that. Many, many more people can participate. And the reason they can is it's just cheap to do. Square doesn't have to go through the regulatory process of becoming a bank in order to shape the way you use your money that's held by some other bank. If you need any evidence of this at all, just spend any time on Kickstarter. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, look at the projects that people are funding. Many, many more people out there, some of them asking for something as low as $100,000 to create a new product that might, in fact, create a new industry. This multiplication of more people doing it at lower cost means there will be more ideas. And if you need evidence of that, read Stephen Johnson's book, Where Good Ideas Come From. It's a really worthwhile read. Shows the conditions under which ideas have a tendency to commingle and then explode. And right now we are living it like no prior generation ever has. We are seeing the fruits of having ideas collide from all over the place. And it's wonderful. The problem with Microsoft is that they haven't been clear on what business they're in. This is that old problem of, am I in the railroad business or am I in the transportation business? In their business, they thought they were in the business-to-business information systems business, which is where they made most of their money from their operating systems. It wasn't from consumers. Meanwhile, Apple was over there saying, if we create enough interest on the consumer side for our products and services, and then someone looks back and says, gee, I'd love that efficiency in my enterprise, somehow it'll work. And it has. It's been remarkably successful. The number, we have a senior executive survey, which I wasn't involved in, and I only heard the details of it, but it seems like 2/3 of all C-level executives in the Fortune, I don't remember which, I'm making up the numbers at this point because my memory's so poor, on this topic, are using iPads and prefer Apple. Now, that's not the case for the unwashed masses, but it is for the C-level executives. And so when you're making decisions about technology in the organization and someone says, well, we can do what we've always done, which is upgrade to the latest Windows package after it's been patched 3 or 4 times, or the executive says, why don't we support this thing? And that's what's happening in more and more. So I'm worried about that. On the other hand, their Xbox was one of the most unexpected successes to come out of Microsoft in a long time. And when I put Microsoft up on the screen, it was because of that. That was an opportunity for them to build a deeper relationship with the customer. If they had married Skype together with the Xbox experience more efficiently, real potential there. Now Minecraft, they're going to own Minecraft. Minecraft is going to be the first viable virtual world tool since Second Life, which never was viable. So there's some huge opportunities there, but Microsoft probably won't know how to capitalize on them. Why? Because they're going to be over there saying, what am I supposed to do here with this operating system thing, the golden goose? Because of that, somebody's going to be walking away with Xbox out the back door. What's been interesting is that even Android, which was the most open, has become more closed in the last few years. And now Android, Google is requiring new handset manufacturers to sign up to promote Google apps inside their app experiences, as opposed to saying, put on it whatever you want, which is what they used to say. So it's moving more in the Apple direction, which I am not a fan of. Just because pure economics suggests that the more open, the more development and innovation will occur, and the more likely we'll have some amazing experiences that come out of it. Having said that, as long as you have 2 closed systems fighting each other tooth and nail, you'll still have a good outcome. The moment that one of them dies or gets bought by the other, then you're in trouble. Then I will actually call the regulators and say, all right, we're in trouble. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Can we be friends again? But until then, and that's why I also root for Amazon, because Amazon is actually a viable third competitor, at least in certain countries, not around the world the way the other two are. Thank you guys, this is really fun.